Hey guys, back with another video. And I think we all know what India is. India, I think we've all heard the country India before. Obviously, it's the second biggest, it's the seventh biggest country. It has the second most amount of people at 1.38 billion, only behind China. But the thing is, though, their soccer slash football national team is like nowhere to be found. Because, and I'm going to be going over, do they have a chance about winning the World Cup in the future? And before I start going over it, I'm going to be going over the history of the national team, going over like a bit of India itself, and going over like their latest results, the national team, and seeing could they win the World Cup one day. I know it's going to sound crazy to say, but could India win the World Cup? So, like I said, I already said the population and how they're seventh biggest. The capital is New Delhi, and their president is Ram Nath Kovind. Yeah. Their history is like people were there like one of the first, like some of the first people ever were there 55,000 years ago, to be precise. And they were there for like a long time. People have been there for a long time. There's still like a lot of like medieval stuff, like stuff from like a long time ago, from like the CEs. But they're also colonized by Great Britain, the British Empire. They were part of them until like the 1940s. Obviously, if you guys know what Gandhi is, he was a very important person in getting India saved. They were part of the British Empire for like almost 100 years. Let me check. Yeah, like they were part of them from like since like 1848. Like 100 years they were part of the British Empire. And like they have some pretty cool stuff there. They have a lot of mountains. They have a lot of cool like animals, like like wild tigers, and like out there they also got some like cool national parks. You got some cool monuments stuff. The Taj Mahal. I think most people probably do know. They'll speak like they speak Hindi also. Mostly speak Hindi, but they do also speak a bit of English because they were part of the British Empire for a long time. So that's like most of India's history. Now we're gonna be going over the national team and like their like success. Let's just say that. And basically their history though. They are part of FIFA, so they are allowed to be part of the FIFA. But they started in like the 1920s, 1930s. They started playing when they started playing like kind of when like people like when British people were in India, they taught Indians to play football. So that's pretty cool because they did teach them to play, and that's when they started getting in. Their first game, like their first like games were in 1924, but their first official, like not official, but this is like before independence. But their first game was 1933 against Ceylon, which is now Sri Lanka. And then they also played games against like China, in Calcutta, my bad. And then in the 1940s, obviously there was World War II, so you didn't really get a lot because like everything stopped. But they did play in the 1948 Summer Olympics, but they unfortunately got knocked out. And by the way, their first 1948 was their first year of independence from Great Britain, and their first game was a 2-1 loss in 1948. And by the way, their first game before independence was in 1938, but their first game as independence was 1948. So yeah. Now we go into 1950s, and this is the one where things worked very good. In 1950, they actually qualified for the 1950 World Cup, which was supposed to be in Brazil, but unfortunately, they withdrawn for 4 reasons. 1, travel cost. 2, lack of practice time. And 3, valuing the Olympics more than the World Cup. But the main reason was because of playing barefoot. Now, it makes sense because they were not after this happened. After the FIFA told them that they couldn't play barefoot, they withdrew because they withdrew because they weren't allowed to, and they played barefoot everywhere. So they now banned barefoot. So that's the only reason why they really couldn't play, was because the main reason was because they played barefoot. But there were also some other reasons, like travel costs, a lot of money, and lack of practice time. But they would start doing good. That wasn't over like that. And until 1964, they were probably like their golden era, when they like went to the Olympics. They made a lot of the Olympics, like, and they did really well. And they won the Asian Games against Philippines in 1954. They won in the 1956 Summer Olympics. They were able to finish 4th, only losing to Bulgaria. So very good. 1958, also Asian Games, they finished 4th, losing to Indonesia. And then in the 1960s, when they did very good, and they finished 2nd in the Asian Games, only losing to South Korea. And then in the 1964 AFC Asian Cup, they didn't really do it because it didn't happen, unfortunately. In the 1970s, this is when it started out doing good. I said that their golden era was in the 1950s and 60s. 70s to like 90s or 2000s, there was like a big decline. In 1968, in 1966 they did the Asian Games, but unfortunately could not make it out. They finished 3rd, but only behind Japan and Iran. And then in 1970 Asian Games, they finished 3rd. So pretty good. In 1974 Asian Games, they finished last, not good again, and then they will finish last in the next Asian Games from 1978 and 1982. They also finished last in the Asian Games, so not great. And then 1984, they were managed to qualify for the AFC Asian Cup, where they finished 2nd, so good. Actually, no, sorry. In 1984, they finished bottom of their group. Yeah, in 1964, though, they finished 2nd, so a lot worse. And then they played in the South Asian Games in 1985, and then won it again in 1987. So they won 2 of those, and then they began playing in the SAFF Championship in 1993. They won it in 1997 and 1999. So very good. And that was their first time competing in the 2002 FIFA World Cup qualifiers for a long time. And they actually got a really good start. They won against the UAE. They tied against Yemen. They won over Brunei, and they won against Bangalore. They won against Brunei. But unfortunately, they couldn't make it through. They were only 1 point away from the next round. And they took part in the SAFF Championship again for 2003. They made it to the semifinals, but only lost to Bangladesh. But now, losing to Bangladesh, not great. I mean, like, if you think Bangladesh used to be part of India, that's not great. Let's come on, so yeah, Bangladesh. And then they were competing a bit more stuff going on. They competed in the 2007 Asian Cup qualifiers. They didn't do good. They lost to Japan. They lost to Saudi Arabia, and they lost to Yemen. So not good. And then they brought on a really good coach, Bob Houghton, in 2006. He did very good. He won the Nehru Cup, which is kind of like an India Football Federation stuff. It's kind of like only Asian, basically most of these. In the 2008 AFC Challenge Cup, they were hosting it, but unfortunately lost in Myanmar. Lost. They lost to Tajikistan. So no, actually they won. They won. Sorry, they won the cup. 2011 AFC Asian Cup again. They were preparing for a while because it was like their first time for a while. And then, unfortunately, though, they got put in a pretty hard group: Australia, South Korea, and Bahrain. Unfortunately, they lost all their games and then finished dead last. So not good. For the 2015 Asian Cup, they still have Bob Houghton, so good. But unfortunately, Bob Houghton left in 2015 because the how do I say this? The government of the national team sacked him off. So yeah, and then in 2014 they failed to make it to the AFC 2015 AFC Asian Cup, but they also failed to make it to the SAFF Championship, losing to Afghanistan in 2013 final. And then so it wasn't doing great. They were in the 2018 FIFA World Cup qualifiers, but lost in the first. They lost in the second round, which was not great. So yeah, and it really wasn't great. Because they finished like third. Really, no, they finished dead last in their group. They finished dead last in their 2018 World Cup qualifiers, and this was bad. They finished bottom of their group behind Iran, Oman, Turkmenistan, and this one's going to sound crazy, but Guam. Yes, they finished behind Guam. They only have 3 points, 1 win, and 7 losses, and conceded 18 goals. Guam got 7 points, 2 goals, and one draw. Finishing behind Guam is not great. It's very not great. So again, they would keep on going though for 2018 in the SAFF Championship. They did pretty good. They actually won the whole thing, and also in 2015 they also won it. So very good. In the AFC Asian Cup, they didn't do good in 2019. They finished bottom of their group, so not great. And then more World Cup qualifiers. They were in the qualifiers this year. They made it to the second round of the World Cup qualifiers, but finished third. And to be fair, they did finish ahead of Afghanistan and Bangladesh. They finished with 7 points, but they missed out on the next part by like 11 points. If Qatar finished first, but they were already automatically through with 22 points, and then Oman finished second with 18 points. So not great, but decent. Like, it's not bad. At least they were able to like finish. They didn't finish bottom at least. And then this year they were actually last year they were playing in the SAFF Championship again, the South Asia Cup, and they won it. They won against Nepal in the final, and they did good. So I do feel like they have it on the rise, and they do have some good players. So Chetri definitely being their best player. He's 37, their captain, has more goals than Messi and Maradona and like a bunch of other players. This guy is so underrated. You should definitely watch a video about him because he is underrated. I'm telling you, this guy is so underrated how good he is. And he actually is like the only Indian, at least like one of the only Indians, to have played outside of India. He's played at the Sporting Kansas Wizards, now Sporting Kansas City. And he also played at Sporting Club de Portugal. Yes, he played there at Kansas in 2010, Sporting 2012 and 2013. So good. They also have like other players like Gurpreet Singh Sandhu. They also have some other players like Sahal Salmad and Pratam Koltau. But also today, actually, they played in a friendly against Bahrain, but unfortunately they lost 2-1 against Bahrain. So not great. And the team, they're going to be playing another friendly in a little bit. They're playing against Belarus, and then they're also going to be playing in the AFC Asian Cup qualifiers soon. So far, after we looked at the country and then we looked at the national team, do they have a chance of making the World Cup in 2026? No. I'm sorry. There's no way. The team, they need to build. They need to build on this team because they don't have any like talent. And if the main reason because India is not able to succeed, like their only big sport I think is like cricket. And the other sports, if you do know, put in the comments because like I feel like cricket is the only good sport they're really good at. And good because they dominate that sport, might dominate another sport. But like I really would like to see them adding up front. If you've seen, well, like I feel like they should. So you know how U.S. before, like maybe like before 2000, they had no young players. They were like a big like powerhouse maybe. Now people are thinking that they could be one of the best teams in like 10 years because they've been growing this like young talent since like 2000. So I think India could do the same now because if they don't do it now, then it's gonna have to wait a long time. Because you think of China, their aim is to win the World Cup in like 2050. I feel like that should also be the game for India. Like grow the youth, like train them. But the main also reason is because of the economy in India. Think of how many poor people there are. Think of how bad how people there don't really I don't know, but like you know what I mean, how like it's not wealthy. Like most people are poor there, so that's another big part. And not a lot of people have like all the equipment. So what do you guys think? Do you think India could win the World Cup in a few years? I don't think so. I do think 30 years, 40 years, 50 years, I do think they have a shot. But now, with their team and their players, no way. I'm sorry, just no way. The chance of it happening, it's more close to a 0% than 100%. So, what do you guys think? Do you think that they could win the World Cup or not in the future? If you do, then leave a comment, click a like on the video, subscribe, and turn on notifications. And I will see you guys next time.